Thank you guys so much for coming. We're so glad that you are here. It is September and it feels like it's June. It is so hot. We don't have AC at my house, so we are just living off of a fan. But I think who has it the worst is probably my dogs because they have all this hair and we can't really do much. So we put ice in their water to make sure they cool down and everything because it's a hot day. It's a hot day. But it is September, and right now it is technically, even though it feels like summer, the fall season. Yes, if anyone like their pumpkin spice lattes, no one's into that. No one likes the seasonal drinks. Don't lie. Don't be shy. It's okay. We still love you. Don't worry, right? But for me, one of the things I really remember in the fall season, actually when I was going to school and growing up, was actually my mom would always take us to McDonald's. Because McDonald's was right next to our school, my sister and I would just shout, McDonald's, McDonald's, McDonald's. So I'm not sure if my mom really had a choice to go to McDonald's, but usually like when we started school and we're done and and she picked us up, we would go and get McDonald's. And when we go get McDonald's, one of the things that we would always get is a Happy Meal. Oh my goodness, this is like the best thing ever since sliced bread. And we would get a Happy Meal and we would be so excited. And we're like, yeah, mom. Like our mom would go to the drive-thru and like, what do you want? And we're like, we want a Happy Meal. And she's like, okay, don't shout. But we're still shouting anyways. And we would get this Happy Meal because it was the best thing ever. For some of y'all, I don't know about you guys. Were some of you guys cheeseburger, hamburgers, chicken nugget people in Happy Meal? What were you guys? Nuggets. We have nugget people. Anyone was a hamburger people? Any hamburger people? Well, okay, that's true. For me, myself, I was a cheeseburger person. I love cheeseburgers. Maybe a little bit too much. I would try to see how big of a bite I can always get with a cheeseburger. But of course, that was something that I really enjoyed. But of course, you just can't have a burger when you're at McDonald's. Probably the next best thing, or probably the reason why we even go to McDonald's is, that's right, you need the French fries. And let me just say, isn't this, how cute this is? I mean, oh my goodness, people online, like, if you, like, look at my face for reference, this tiny little fry cup. But yes, McDonald's fries. You can't have a McDonald's burger without having McDonald's fries. But of course, we all know the real reason why we get a Happy Meal. That's right. It's because with every Happy Meal, you get a toy. And yes, it is the best thing ever. And you could tell if the toy was nothing spectacular, it was probably made of just cheap plastic. It was basically a block of plastic with little wheels on it, depending on which toy it was. But you would get this toy and you're like, oh my gosh, you open the box and you find and you see, what toy did you get? And McDonald's PR did such a great job because it's, you know what? You need to collect all 8. And you're like, that's right. I need to collect all 8. Even though I don't want it, I want it because they said I have to collect it. And so we would go and we would find these toys and we would open our Happy Meal and then we would see what toy we got. And sometimes we didn't get the toy we wanted. Sometimes we would get the toy and I would open it and I'll be like, I don't want this toy. And being the entitled brat that I was, I would go to the person. I'm like, Mom, can we go back inside? And she's like, why? And I was like, because I need ketchup or something. I'll make some excuse. But I'll go back with my Happy Meal and I would ask the person, like, do you have a different toy? Like this is I don't want this toy. And they would say, no, that's the only toy we got. And I'll be like, oh. And I would walk back to my car with the toy that I really, really wanted, but also the toy I didn't want. And it made me think, when we have these types of disappointments, of thinking, I really wanted something, and then ending up not getting it, it made me really think, did I really boycott McDonald's? Be like, you know what? Forget Happy Meals. I don't want Happy Meals anymore. I'm going to Burger King, right? Actually, no, not really. I actually still went to McDonald's. If anything, I went back to my mom and I would tell my mom, like, Mom, we need to go get a Happy Meal again. And she's like, you just had one. Like, what? I'm like, Mom, I'm growing. And she was like, no, we're not going to get you another Happy Meal. As you can tell, I grew very, very wide. And I'll beg my mom, please, we need to get another Happy Meal. And for me, I would beg my mom to get it because I just wanted another toy. I wanted the toy that I wanted. And I would try to get this toy through trial and error. If not this Happy Meal, I'll get in the next Happy Meal. And guess what? I got a toy that I didn't like anyways. So you know what? I'll try the next Happy Meal until I get the toy I wanted. Or just in case I forget. I don't know what comes first, right? I'm a kid. And isn't that something within us as well? Sometimes we seek after things that what we want. And we seek after, and we finally get some level of it. And then we look at it and we're just like, yes, finally. But then we open it up, or we're there, or we have it, and we're just like, is this it? But this isn't really what I wanted. And maybe even in our faith, that's something that we've experienced with God too. Where we prayed, and we asked, and then God kind of shows up in some way, but then we see it and we're just like, is this it? Is this what it's expected to be? Is this really what I asked for? God, this isn't what I asked for. And then we feel this level of disappointment. I mean, sometimes we even feel this level of, you know what, why even bother? And that's something so real within our lives, isn't it? Whether it be in the workplace, whether it be maybe even in a relationship, maybe even be with God. You've worked for the job. You got the girl, you got the guy. You prayed. But in the end, you're kind of met with a huge disappointment. And it's interesting because when we look at our faith, one of the big things that requires for us, for even to have this relationship with God, is faith. Is this hope of what we do not see. Is having this idea of like, I don't know what's going to come next, but then you're there. But I've been met with so much disappointment with things I never thought it was going to turn out my way. So what do I do then, God? So today I want to ask this question for us. As we're preparing for our fall season, I want to ask this question. And this question is, what does it mean to step out in faith? What does it mean to step out in faith? Even when we're disappointed, even when whatever we're feeling, what does it mean to step out in faith? And we're going to look at a story in Numbers, but it's the story of Moses. You see, the Israelites, they were out of Egypt now. Moses said, let my people go, right? And then all these things happen, and now they're in the desert, right? And they're traveling, and they're going to the land that God has promised them. A land flowing with milk and honey, that this land is going to be so amazing, it's going to be great. So as the Israelites were traveling, and now they were over the hill, almost over the hill to this promised land, to this land that God shared with them, like it's right there. We're almost there. And you're going to experience this land that's just rich and fertile and amazing. And they're in this place. So Moses, right before the promised land, right, it's right over the hill. And Moses says, you know what? We're going to spy out the land just real quick. So what he does is he gets 12, one person from each tribe, that kind of like the head of the tribe, in each tribe of Israel. And what he does is he sends these spies and tells them, go and spy out the land. See if the people are strong, or they're more mellow. See if the land is fertile, or see if the land is unable to farm. Make sure you look at the cities. If the cities are they heavily fortified with tall walls, and making sure that they're that people they're ready for invasion, or are they open and welcoming? And so these 12 spies go into the land, and then they travel up north and see all the land, the people, the cities. And they even come back with a report. And after 40 days, after looking at the land, the people, the cities, they come back. And this is where we start in Numbers 13, verse 26. And it says this: and they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the truth, or show them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account: we went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. See, here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. And the Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb, while everyone was talking, silenced the people before Moses and said to everyone, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. And these spies, they came back and they brought the fruit. They put these fruit in these on this two sticks to show how amazing the fruit is, to share how amazing the land is. But just as the opportunity was great, their threat was great. Oh, you can go back. The threat was great. Just as much as the opportunity was great, the threat may even seemed greater. You see, the descendants of Anak were people they considered giants. These were probably the giants that we read in the time of David and Goliath. Goliath was a descendant of the Anak. And the people, the spies who entered the land, who traveled up north, where we know now as Judah, Samaria, and Galilee, as they traveled up that land, they saw these giants who were roaming the land. They saw these cities who were not only fortified, but who were strong. And for a group of people who didn't have a city, who didn't have a home, they were living in tents, building and tearing it down, moving and moving as God shows them. They see these fortified cities and they're like, we can't beat them. We can't do anything. Look at these giants. We can't have any sort of possibility even to be with them. These cities, not only are they strong, but they're heavily fortified. We have no chance against them. And it's interesting because the promised land, the land that God told them that he is going to give, it's right around the corner. It's right over there. It's a throw of a rock away. But now when they heard the reports, they begin to be afraid. We can't win. We can't take it. But then Caleb, one of the spies, says, no, we can surely take this land. We can do it. We can take it. But we know that in a lot of times for us, risk and opportunity is a really big thing. For some of us, you may even resonate with this. It's better to be safe than sorry. Or for some people, it's like, no, take the risk and deal with the consequences later. I'm not sure who you guys or what you guys prefer. But we totally understand what that means. Because for some of us, we want to play it safe. Because for us, opportunity is calculative. Opportunity is when I can decide, when I can see this being a win, or there's no room for failure, then I will take the step. For some of us, that is being wise. For some of us, that is being smart and calculative in our decisions. But we see sometimes we can't grow. We can't move forward unless we take risks. And it's funny because this is actually the second time Moses sent spies, actually. This isn't the first time Moses sent spies. This is the second time. Because the first time he sent spies as they left Egypt and they were traveling in the desert, he sent spies to travel the land, and he said to the people, like, go spy out the land and see how everything is so that we can travel in safety. The spies came back and they're saying, like, Moses, you know what? We messed up, man. You know what? We're not gonna you brought us out here to die. We're not going to survive. What's wrong with you? We can't beat these people. We're traveling with all our family and livestock and everyone. What do you expect us to do? Now, you know what, Moses? We're done. We're going to go back to Egypt. And what ends up happening, the first time Moses sent out those spies, is that God saw the hearts of the people. And he says, the promises I gave you, the hope that I laid in your heart, so easily thrown away. And as punishment for their own selfishness, he says those people will not see the promised land. And which is the reason why they traveled for 40 years. Because for them, winning was staying alive. You see, for them, winning, what was being successful, is that, no, we're not going to go to what we're promised. We're going to go to what we think is a win, what we think is success. And it's funny that God's punishment for these people was actually what they wanted. They wanted to stay alive. They wanted not to risk anything. That's fine. You will travel the desert, not risking your life, not risking anything, but you will not see the promise that I've given you. And we see Moses sending out the spies the second time to the land of Canaan. The spies were afraid. I mean, rightfully so. Why wouldn't we be afraid? Why wouldn't we be afraid of sending our applications to a different job? Why wouldn't we be afraid to ask this person out? Why wouldn't we be afraid to take a risk to uproot everything and send my family somewhere else? It is a risk. But it is probably one of the biggest risks that brought the biggest blessing for you. The biggest risk you probably took was probably the biggest blessing that you even have right now. And that is what Caleb was telling to the people. Is like, no, yes, there's so many things, there's so many obstacles, but we can take it. We can do it. But the people, Caleb and Joshua, telling the congregation, telling the assembly, we can go. But the other 10 spies were too loud. And we read in Numbers, as it continues on, he says this. He says that, but the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. And they said to everyone there, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people saw that there are great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak coming from the Nephilim, the giants. And we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes. And guess what? When we looked, the same to them. When we made eye contact with the giants in the land, they saw us as grasshoppers and didn't even bother trying to attack us. Even though they knew we were spies, even though they knew we were a threat, they looked at us as if we were nothing. And they just walked on by. We have no chance to take this land. And isn't it so powerful how doubt poisons, how doubt multiplies in our life. It's so interesting how a single doubt can make us change our entire life. And we see that the spies were saying, we can't do it. 10 of the spies say, we can't do it. Moses, you know what? This is what we're going to do. You led us to a trap. You led us to a place where we can't win. Yes, it's a land of milk and honey. Yes, we see all the produce, but is it really worth the risk? Is it really worth doing all this? You know what, Moses? You know what we're going to do? Forget this. We're going to assign another leader. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go back to Egypt. We're going to assign another leader. And we're going to go back to slavery. We're going to go back to what we pleaded God to get us out from. And we're going to go back to living that life again. And that is the most powerful thing that Satan loves to do, is to trap us in. He loves to trap you into thinking that this was just good enough. One of the books that I really love is called Good to Great. And one of the dangerous things that happens to our life is just be good enough. I would rather just live than go into this promised land. This is a failure. You're going to lead us to failure, Moses. And we see that the people, or the spies, they quit. And they're like, we're done. This is not good. This is not successful. You led us into this pain. And we read that God, again, looks at these leaders, looks at the head of the tribes, who said, Moses, we're done. We're going to choose another leader, and we're going to go back to slavery. He looks at them and says, you have sinned against me. And in your sin, you will not see the promised land. You will not be able to live in the promised land. And it's so interesting because they're the ones who saw the fruit. They're the ones who saw how great it was to live there. And that if they go and they enter into it, not only is this a possibility, but rather, they would rather live in their own reality than give and live into what God has called them to do. And those head of tribes, those 10, they did not get to enter. As punishment, did not get to enter into the promised land. But for Joshua and Caleb, there was something amazing that God did in their lives. And we read even in Joshua, in the very, very first chapter of the book of Joshua, we read how Moses is now past. The greatest leader the Israelites have ever known. The man who brought them out of the grasp of a superpower of the world, who journeyed in the desert with no food and nothing but was provided with water. And this man who led us all the way up to the doorsteps of the promised land. And right there, he passed. And now this man named Joshua was going to come and take his place. And you're thinking, and many people may have thought, who is this man who thinks he can lead this nation? He's not Moses. He can't do what Moses did. Why should we follow him? You know what? We're going to just push him aside. Let's choose other leaders. Another leader. But no. As Joshua remained faithful. And you guys have maybe probably seen this verse in posts and everything, but I love it. And we see God, Yahweh, calling onto Joshua and telling him and commanding him, be strong and courageous. Do not turn left or right from the commandments I have given you, but go into the land that I have promised you. Did I not say, be strong and courageous? And I love this. Because for us, we want to see the outcome. If anything, we already know the outcome. And a lot of us, we want to make decisions after we know the outcome. Since there's no way I can fail, I'm going to do it. Since there's no way that it can be bad, you know what? And there's no risk, I'm going to enter into it. But guess what? Everything we do requires a risk. Everything we do requires us to exit and become uncomfortable. And everything we are going to do, it's going to require us to have faith. C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, he not only wrote children's book, he was actually an amazing theologian, amazing writer. And he would say, and he in one of his books, he wrote, and it was like a demon talking to a lesser demon about what to do, how to trick and how to trap humans. And he would, and as he was making this monologue and making this talk, he was saying that, you know what? All we need to do, and I'm paraphrasing it, all we need to do to these humans is just make them think, do what's good. All we need to do is to trick these humans to think that just do enough. Because we don't mind if they have family values, as long as their focus is in the family. We don't mind if they have moralistic values, as long as their concern and their focus is on morals. We don't mind if they even have Christian values, because as long as they look and just see the values. We just want to make sure that everything that they focus on is not focusing on Christ. Anything and everything, it's okay as long as we don't focus on Christ. And that hit me when I first read that, because it made me think, how many times have I thought to myself, just be good, that's enough. How many times have I thought, like, oh, just have these Christian values, but then I forget about Christ. And a lot of times I've forgotten what makes the gospel so powerful. Sometimes even I forget what makes the gospel so real, is that this book is not just about 2,000 years ago, but that this book is alive today as it was back then. Is that the reason why this book is so alive is because I choose to take steps of faith. every day. This book becomes alive. Christ becomes alive because we choose to take steps of faith every day. If we choose just to do something that we know that we can succeed, where can we say God showed up in our life? If we only did things that we know that we can turn out the results, where do we say, if God didn't show up, we wouldn't have had this? If God didn't show up, then we couldn't have done this. And one of the best ways for us to experience our faith coming alive is taking these steps to see what God is calling on your heart. That we stop looking at paving the way for our success, paving the way for things that we think is going to make us profitable or make us in a way that is successful. For the Israelites, for them, success was just staying alive. For them, that was it. And God granted them just that. Just stay alive. And they have never seen the promised land. But for those who told Joshua, go, where you go, we will go. We will be strong and courageous. As God has called you, we will follow you into this land. And as they went into Canaan, they saw a new land flowing with milk and honey. You see, I asked this question today. I asked, what does it mean to what does it mean to step out in faith? What does it mean to step out in faith? It means trusting God with what comes next and not with what I think is a success. Taking out a step in faith, it means trusting God with what comes next and not with what I think is a success. Because it's easy to make my success the goal. It's easy to say that if I make sure that I don't fail and nothing goes wrong, then it's fine. But God wants to show up in our life in a way that if He wasn't there, then it wouldn't have happened. God wants to show up in our lives in a way that will make it so loud, that will make it so evident that if He wasn't there, then it wouldn't have happened. And if that happens, how great is our faith? And it's funny because we look at a single little tiny mustard seed, as Jesus said, is that if you have a faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. And I'm not sure if you guys like hiking. Sometimes I wish the mountain will move because I am tired and I want to go up to the top already. And we look like, how can that little faith move a mountain? And the way it moves mountains is that faith, being sure of what we hope for, being certain of what we do not see. Having a little faith is still having faith. Even having a single mustard seed of faith is having faith. Am I willing to take that step?